Good afternoon, children. So, we are moving to our next topic, respiration in human beings. The human respiratory system is more complex and involves breathing, exchange of gases, and cellular respiration. A well defined respiratory system helps in breathing and gaseous exchange. Breathing involves the inhalation of oxygen and exhalation of carbon dioxide. The gaseous exchange takes place in the lungs and oxygen is supplied to all cells of the body. Cellular respiration takes place in each and every cell. So in this diagram, you can see the details of the human respiratory system. It is having nasal passage, mouth cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, rings of cartilage, lungs, which are having alveoli, respiratory bronchioles, alveolar sac, diaphragm, everything you can see from the diagram. The human respiratory system involves the nose, nasal cavities, pharynx, larynx, trachea or windpipe, bronchi, bronchioles and alveoli. Bronchioles and alveoli are enclosed in a pair of lungs. You can observe it from the given diagram there. The rib cage, muscles associated with the rib cage and diaphragm all help in inhalation and exhalation of gases. Exchange of gases takes place between an alveolar surface and surrounding blood vessels. Alveoli provide a large surface area for exchange of gases. So along with the diagram, just have the clarification. We are going to discuss about physiology of respiration, that how respiration is happening inside our body. Breathing in human is facilitated by the action of internal intercostal and external intercostal muscles attached to the ribs and the diaphragm. When the dome-shaped diaphragm contracts and becomes flattened and the rib cage is expanded due to the action of intercostal muscles, the volume of the lungs increases, pressure there drops down, and the air from outside rushes in. This is inhalation. To exhale, the diaphragm relaxes, becomes dome-shaped again, chest cavity contracts due to the action of intercostal muscles, the volume inside the lungs decreases, pressure increases, and the air is forced out of the lungs. Inhaled air increases the concentration of oxygen in the alveoli, so oxygen simply diffuses into the surrounding blood vessels. Blood coming from the cells has more concentration of carbon dioxide than outside air, and thus carbon dioxide simply diffuses out of the blood vessels into the alveoli. Thus, breathing takes place due to the combined action of intercostal muscles and diaphragm, while the exchange of gases takes place due to the simple diffusion. During the breathing cycle, when air is taken in and let out, the lungs always contain a residual volume of air so that there is a sufficient time for oxygen to be absorbed and for the carbon dioxide to be released. Here I mentioned residual volume of air. Residual volume is the amount of air that remains in a person's lungs after fully exhaling. Doctors use tests to measure a person's residual air volume to help check how well the lungs are functioning. And residual volume is measured by a gas dilution test. Now, why there is residual volume in the lungs? The residual volume functions to keep the alveoli open even after maximum expiration. In healthy lungs, the air that makes up the residual volume allows for continual gas exchange to occur between breaths. The oxygen depleted residual air is then mixed with the newly inhaled air to improve gas exchange at the alveoli. When the body size of animals is large, the diffusion pressure alone cannot take care of oxygen delivery to all parts of the body. Instead, respiratory pigments taken up oxygen from the air in the lungs and carry it to tissues which are deficient in oxygen before releasing it. In human beings, the respiratory pigment is hemoglobin, which has a very high affinity for oxygen. The pigment is present in the red blood corpuscles. Carbon dioxide is more soluble in water than oxygen is, and hence is mostly transported in the dissolved form in our blood. Now from the diagram you can see the breathing, inhaling and exhaling. The process of taking in air rich in oxygen is called inhalation. Similarly, process of giving out air rich in carbon dioxide is called exhalation. One breath comprises one inhalation and one exhalation. A person breathes several times in a day. The number of times a person breathes in 1 minute is termed as his or her breathing rate. Why do we need lungs? In unicellular organisms like an amoeba, exchange of gases takes place through a general body surface by osmosis. In lower animals like an earthworm, the gaseous exchange takes place through their moist skin. The requirement of oxygen is sufficiently met by these ways, but as the animal starts becoming more and more complex, for example human, the requirement of oxygen cannot be met alone by the diffusion. Moreover, diffusion will not be able to supply oxygen to the deep-seated cells. This difficulty has led to the evolution of a more complex mechanism of gaseous exchange, and that is the development of lungs. The alveoli present in the lungs provide a large surface area required for the necessary gas exchange. Now we'll discuss respiration in lower animals. Lower animals lack a sophisticated respiratory system like lungs, alveoli, etc. Respiration in them takes place by simple exchange mechanisms. Animals like earthworm take in gases inside their body through their skin. Fishes have gills for gaseous exchange. Insects have a tracheal system, which is a network of tubes through which air circulates and gaseous exchange takes place. Frogs breathe through their skin when in water and through their lungs when they are on land. We have seen that plants exchange gases through stomata, and the large intercellular spaces ensure that all cells are in contact with air. Carbon dioxide and oxygen are exchanged by diffusion here. They can go into cells or away from them and out into the air. The direction of diffusion depends upon the environmental conditions and the requirements of the plant. At night, when there is no photosynthesis occurring, carbon dioxide elimination is the major exchange activity going on. During the day, carbon dioxide generated during respiration is used up for photosynthesis. Hence, there is no carbon dioxide release. Instead, oxygen release is the major event at this time.